I met Elise at a friend's housewarming party. The kind of party where everyone shows up looking slightly too polished, carrying bottles of wine they'll never drink, and trying to out-casual each other about their LinkedIn titles. She wasn't doing any of that. She was standing by the kitchen counter in jeans and a white sweater, laughing with her whole body. I remember thinking how different she looked from everyone else in the room. Relaxed. Real. Like she wasn't trying to fit into the conversation, like the conversation was trying to fit around her. We talked for 3 hours straight that night. I don't even remember what music was playing, what food they served, or how many people came and went. I just remember Elise leaning in closer when she laughed and asking me real questions. None of that small talk fluff people use to fill space. It was easy. Effortless. She worked as a junior web designer at the time. Freelancing a little, trying to get a full-time position somewhere bigger. I was already a few years into consulting, systems design, infrastructure work for tech startups. We joked about our overlapping careers even though she was all about creative spaces and I was more about clean grids and efficiency. We started dating immediately. There wasn't any of that weird texting game. No questions about where we stood. We just were. 2 years later, I proposed during a trip to the mountains. It was snowing lightly, and we were wrapped up in scarves and coats, and she said yes before I even finished the question. We both laughed so hard the ring almost slipped out of my hand and into the snow. We got married 6 months later. It wasn't a huge wedding, but it was beautiful. Elise had this way of making everything feel like a movie scene without trying. String lights across the courtyard, old records playing during dinner, flowers everywhere you looked. My family loved her immediately. Her family loved me right back. Life after that was even better. We bought a house not too far from downtown. A wide-fronted craftsman with tall windows, a deep porch, and just enough backyard for the dog we swore we didn't have time for but ended up adopting anyway. I set up my office upstairs where the sun came in all afternoon. Elise built a cozy little nook downstairs with a desk, a standing lamp, and all her design books stacked around like a fortress. She landed a permanent job not long after we moved, web design lead for a boutique marketing firm. She was proud of it. She should have been. It was the kind of place where the projects were big, the client lists were bigger, and the workspace looked like something out of a design magazine. Open floor plans, art installations, espresso bars, the works. We weren't flashy about money, but we didn't stress about it either. Trips a few times a year. New furniture without having to save 6 months first. Good schools lined up for when the kids came. And they did, a few years later. Our daughter first. Then our son. Elise took to motherhood like she took to everything else, head on, heart first. She still worked, still pushed herself, but somehow made every school play, every parent-teacher meeting, every bedtime story. We built a life. A good one. One that felt safe. Mornings at our house always felt like a little bit of organized chaos. Elise was the conductor, moving through the kitchen with her hair in a messy bun, flipping pancakes with one hand, answering Owen's questions about dinosaurs with the other, all while Ava quizzed her on spelling words from across the table. I'd usually be on coffee duty, working the espresso machine like it was a science project. Elise always said I made the best cappuccinos, even better than the places downtown. I didn't argue. Watching her close her eyes and smile after the first sip made it worth it. Weekends were our recharge days. No alarms, no rushing out the door. Just slow breakfasts that stretched into late mornings, the kids building Lego towers taller than the dog, Elise flipping through her design books, jotting little notes in the margins the way she always did when an idea hit her. Sometimes we'd drive out to the lake, let the kids throw pebbles into the water, sit on the dock with our feet swinging over the edge, talking about everything and nothing. Work stayed busy, but it never felt like it came between us. My projects kept growing, consulting jobs for bigger companies, better contracts. Elisa's firm kept landing major clients too. She'd come home excited, telling me about branding overhauls she was working on, or how her team pulled off a website launch under crazy deadlines. I loved listening to her. You could hear it in her voice, how much pride she took in what she built. We traveled a couple times a year. Nothing flashy, just good, clean trips. Long weekends at the coast. Week-long cabin rentals up in the mountains. Sometimes we splurged a little and took the kids to those big resorts with water parks and endless buffets, laughing when Owen got so tired he fell asleep still holding a chicken nugget. The house was Elise's canvas. Every season, something small changed, fresh flowers on the dining table, a new art print over the fireplace, a different shade of throw pillows she swore made the whole place feel lighter. I teased her about it, but I loved how alive she made our home. Everything she touched had a little more color, a little more warmth. Even after long work weeks, we stayed close. Elise made sure of it. Date nights weren't a big production, sometimes it was just ordering Thai food and watching old movies we half remembered from college. Other times we booked a sitter and went out for real, good wine, better food, laughing like we were back at that first party where we met. The kids were thriving too. Ava was getting awards for reading ahead of her grade. Owen was the kid every teacher said was so much fun even when he forgot to sit still. Elise loved volunteering at their school events when her schedule allowed, making crafts, helping at the book fair, bringing snacks to class parties. We were proud of the life we were building. Proud of how we managed to keep moving forward without losing the little things that made it all feel worth it. It was our life, and it was real good. One thing about Elise, she loved building traditions. It wasn't about grand events or expensive plans. It was little rituals that slowly became the threads holding our weeks together. Friday nights were homemade pizza nights. Elise had a wooden pizza stone she swore made the crust crispier, and the kids loved choosing their own toppings. Ava always went heavy on olives, Owen dumped half the cheese bag on his. We'd sit around the big kitchen island, flour dust in the air, the oven heating the whole house with that slow, cozy warmth that made everything feel right. Saturday mornings were slow. No rushing out of bed, no tight schedules. Elise would throw on a playlist, old soul music, mostly, and we'd have pancakes or waffles, whichever the kids begged louder for. Sometimes we'd all end up dancing in the kitchen, socks sliding across the hardwood floors. On Sundays, we drove out to the big park across town. The kids loved the wide fields and the little duck pond. Elise always packed snacks even if we planned to grab lunch after. She said it felt wrong to show up anywhere without at least a thermos of hot cocoa and a Ziploc bag of something homemade. Those small things knitted us together tighter than any big trip or expensive toy could. Work was still busy, but it never pushed into the wrong corners of our life. I kept growing my consulting work steadily, enough that we didn't blink at booking summer camps for the kids or updating the backyard with a real patio setup last year. Elise's firm kept offering her new opportunities, bigger projects, more creative freedom, and she took them without losing her grip on everything else. She worked hard, but never made it the excuse to pull away. When she was home, she was home. Fully. Her phone stayed tucked in her bag during dinners. She asked about school, about the kids' friends, about what weird thing Owen tried to build out of Legos that week. She listened. Really listened. Some nights, after the kids were asleep, she'd pull out her laptop and show me the projects she was working on, beautiful, bright, smart designs that felt so completely her. We'd sit side by side on the couch, sharing a blanket, talking through her ideas while I gave dumb feedback about colors and fonts I didn't actually understand. She laughed a lot. Real laughter. The kind that fills a house without even trying. Our home reflected all of it. Clean spaces filled with little touches from our trips and memories. Framed photos, hand-drawn art from the kids, a growing shelf of books and keepsakes. The garden in the backyard that Elise insisted we start, even though neither of us had any clue what we were doing at first. The dog following us from room to room like he was worried we'd start the party without him. It was a good life. Busy. Loud. Full. Real good. It felt exactly like the kind of life we always talked about building back when we first met. And we were living it. As the kids got older, life shifted a little, but in the best ways. Ava started getting into soccer. She wasn't the most aggressive player, but she loved being part of the team. Elise volunteered to help organize snacks and carpool shifts. Saturdays turned into early mornings at the park, bundled up with coffee cups and folding chairs, cheering from the sidelines while Owen tried to climb every goalpost he could find. Elise thrived on it. She had this way of making every event feel bigger than it was, not in a dramatic way, but like it mattered simply because we were there, together. After every game, whether Ava's team won or lost, Elise would scoop her up into a hug and tell her she was proud. No lectures, no pressure. Just pride. Owen, meanwhile, was all about science fairs and building projects. He could spend hours in the garage, working on cardboard robots that usually fell apart before they made it to the kitchen. Elise always encouraged it. Helped him paint signs, label buttons, figure out where batteries should go. Even when she was tired after a long day at work, she made time. I never once heard her say, maybe tomorrow. We kept making space for each other, too. Wednesday nights became our unofficial date nights. Nothing elaborate, sometimes just a walk downtown, grabbing tacos from the food trucks, sitting on a bench watching the city breathe around us. Other times, we'd catch a movie or explore some new little restaurant Elise read about online. She always found places tucked into corners I wouldn't have noticed. We still laughed easily. Still fell asleep most nights with her legs slung over mine, the way she always did when she was half asleep and searching for something to anchor her. The dog still snored like a broken engine at the foot of the bed. The house still hummed with that low, constant energy that only comes when people are comfortable enough to just exist without performance. Work kept moving forward too. I had just landed a new client, a major tech startup expanding into our region, and it opened the door to a lot more flexibility. More room to pick the kids up after school. More time to meet Elise for quick lunches when her schedule allowed. She was thriving, too. Her firm trusted her with bigger projects, full website rebrands, major marketing launches. She was proud of it. Showed me her work like it was a painting she'd been working on for months. And honestly, it was beautiful. Bright, clean designs, smart layouts, pieces that felt alive. She even started mentoring some of the newer designers at her firm. Said she wanted to help people build the same way she'd been helped. Watching her talk about it, you couldn't help but admire the way she lit up. We had the kind of life where the days folded into each other in the best way. Familiar. Comfortable. The steady rhythm of mornings and practices and deadlines and hugs at the door. And even when the days felt packed to the edges, they still felt full, not heavy. Fall was always busy for us. School started back up, my project load picked up speed, and Elise's office kicked into high gear with new clients rolling in. The mornings got colder. Ava started needing a ride to soccer practice twice a week, and Owen begged to sign up for a messy art class at the rec center that left him covered in glue and glitter half the time. Elise kept the calendar somehow perfectly balanced, color-coded, pinned to the fridge, with little notes and stickers for anything fun coming up. She still made dinner most nights she was home. Still sat next to me with her head resting lightly against my shoulder when we watched shows after the kids went down. Still sent me little texts when she was in meetings too boring to survive without a lifeline. It was our life. Moving forward the way it always had, full, busy, happy. Around late October, Elise mentioned she might get pulled onto a bigger branding project at her firm. A full redesign for one of their top clients, a company that could open doors for everyone on the team if it landed right. She told me about the long meetings, the new leadership shaking things up, the late nights that might come with it. I listened. I was proud of her. She deserved it. The first small thing didn't even register at first. We were having one of those quiet evenings. Kids asleep, dog snoring in the corner, TV on low, both of us half awake in that comfortable end-of-the-day way. Elise was curled up next to me, scrolling something on her phone. Probably Pinterest. Maybe her firm's project group chat. Nothing unusual. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, smiled a little, and tucked it under her leg without answering. Normal, right? Could have been nothing. I didn't think about it much. Just a flicker. A small, passing thing. Later, when I got up to grab a glass of water, I passed her jacket thrown over the back of the chair. Her work badge was clipped to the pocket like always, the little security fob hanging off the side, but underneath it was a second keycard. Newer. Different color. No label. I paused. I almost asked about it. Then I figured it must be for the new project. Maybe the firm expanded office spaces. Maybe it was access to some new client's building. Elise would tell me if it mattered. I didn't say anything. Just moved her jacket neatly onto the hook and went to bed. She came up not long after. Slid into bed like she always did, her feet cold against my legs, laughing when I yelped. Everything felt normal. But somewhere, in the very back of my mind, that second keycard stayed. A few weeks after I noticed the extra keycard, things started to feel busier. Not in a bad way, not rushed or frantic, just a little more stretched. Elise's firm officially landed the big client. She came home the day they signed, dropped her bag on the floor, and spun me around like a kid. We celebrated with champagne that had been sitting in the back of the fridge for 6 months, the kids laughing at how silly we looked dancing in the kitchen. She was proud. And I was proud of her. The new project meant more meetings, a few late nights, but she kept balancing everything better than I could have imagined. She never missed the important things, Ava's school performance, Owen's first real attempt at a science fair project, even if the volcano barely made it off the kitchen table. She still sent quick updates from work, still sat down for dinner with us whenever she could. Life stayed full. But here and there, something started feeling a little misaligned. Not broken. Not wrong. Just different. One afternoon, I picked up her dry cleaning. She'd asked me to grab a few things for her, some dresses, a few blazers, and I figured it was easier than having her rush over during a packed workday. When I got home, I started hanging them up. One of the bags had a receipt stapled to the outside, normal. But something about the dates caught my eye. It wasn't from a day she told me she had meetings downtown. It was a Tuesday, a day she'd worked from home, according to what she'd said. Again, nothing solid. People forget what day they do things all the time. Maybe she dropped it off while running errands, maybe she forgot to mention it. Still, it lodged somewhere in the back of my mind. A few nights later, Elise mentioned she had a meeting, off-site, at one of their creative partners' offices. She made a face like she wasn't thrilled about it, long commute, late evening, not worth the traffic. She joked that she wished she could send a cardboard cutout in her place. I laughed with her. Told her she'd probably still manage to look better than most of the team. She smiled, kissed me, grabbed her laptop bag, and left. I didn't question it. Why would I? But when I went to clean up the kitchen afterward, her work tablet was still sitting on the counter. Normally, she never left without it. It was her portable lifeline to presentations, notes, client calls. I texted her, "Forgot your tablet." No reply. An hour later, she sent a picture of a coffee cup in an empty conference room, with a quick, "So bored," caption. Nothing wrong. Nothing you could point at and say, "Here's the proof." But I stood there for a long time that night, holding her tablet, looking out at the driveway where her car had been parked an hour earlier, and feeling a pressure I couldn't name settling into my chest. No anger, no paranoia. Just a quiet, low hum of something that wasn't supposed to be there. It hit all of us at once. Some late autumn bug, the kind that shows up overnight and knocks you flat before you even have time to pretend you're fine. Fever, chills, endless coughing. Owen came down with it first, then Ava, then me. Elise somehow dodged the worst of it, but the kids and I were a mess for a solid week. On the third day, I decided it was time to go in. Owen's cough wasn't letting up, and Ava was running hot enough to make me nervous. I bundled them into the car and took them to the urgent care center a few miles away. It was the usual chaos when we got there, crying toddlers, stressed-out parents, overworked nurses doing their best. We got called back after a long wait and shuffled into a little exam room where a tired-looking doctor took our vitals, listened to Owen's breathing, and started asking a million questions. Family history. Allergies. Genetic conditions. Standard stuff. I rattled off answers while trying to keep Owen from pulling the blood pressure cuff off his arm. At some point, the doctor frowned at the clipboard. He looked at me, then at the kids. "You sure you're the biological father?" he asked casually, almost like it was an afterthought. I laughed a little, caught off guard. "Yeah." "Why?" He shrugged. "Their gene markers don't match yours closely. It's not unheard of, mutations, dominant recessive expression, random variances, but it's a big gap for immediate family." I stared at him, the words jamming in my throat. "They're sick because of a virus," he added quickly. "Nothing genetic. No need to worry. It's just something we flag sometimes when doing comparative panels." I nodded dumbly, trying to process it while Owen climbed onto the little wheeled stool and spun himself into the wall. We finished the exam, picked up a prescription for antibiotics, and headed home. The kids fell asleep in the back seat almost immediately. Their faces so peaceful, so familiar. Ava's hair tucked behind one ear the way Elise always did. Owen's lopsided smile even in sleep. Mine. Completely, absolutely mine. And yet the doctor's voice wouldn't leave my head. Big gap for immediate family. I kept telling myself it was probably nothing. An error. A misread. Genetics were complicated. Variations happened. It wasn't a test. It wasn't proof. Still, that night, after Elise tucked Ava in and kissed Owen's forehead, I sat downstairs by myself long after everyone else was asleep. The house was quiet except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. And I couldn't stop seeing flashes, not of the kids, not of Elise with them, but of all the little things that had piled up in the corners of my mind over the past few months. The second keycard. The slight, strange changes. The unanswered text at the dentist's office. The unfamiliar name on her project messages. Pieces that never made sense until now. I sat there for a long time. And then I picked up my phone, opened the browser, and started searching for private labs that did paternity testing. I wasn't angry yet. I wasn't even sad. I just needed to know the truth. Whatever it was. The test didn't take long. 2 swabs, one from Ava, one from Owen. An appointment scheduled carefully during a school half-day, so they thought it was just another checkup. Elise didn't know. I couldn't bring myself to explain why we needed it, not yet. The results were supposed to take a week. They came back in 3 days. I sat at the kitchen table when the email hit my inbox. Everyone else was out. Elise had taken the kids to the park after work to burn off the sick energy, she said, still laughing as she wrangled them into coats and sneakers. The house was too quiet when I opened it. There it was. Plain black letters. Simple, clinical, unmistakable. Probability of paternity, 0%. For both of them. I blinked. Read it again. Checked the file number, the birth dates, the codes on the swab packets. Same. There was no mistake. No weird genetic twist. No random lab error. The kids I raised, the kids I held in my arms at the hospital the night they were born, the kids whose drawings lined the fridge and whose toys cluttered the hallway, biologically, they weren't mine. The truth slammed into me so hard I forgot how to breathe. I didn't throw anything. I just sat there, my hands flat on the table, my heart a slow, broken drum in my chest. There wasn't a part of me that doubted the kids for a second. They were mine in every way that mattered. Blood didn't change the late nights, the sick days, the birthday cakes, the tiny hands reaching for mine when they were scared. But Elise. Elise had lied to me. For years. Through every milestone. Every family trip. Every whispered, "I love you," when we thought the world outside didn't matter. She had looked me in the eyes, built a life with me, while carrying the weight of that lie the whole time. I thought about the second keycard. The out-of-place sketchbooks. The odd dry-cleaning slip. The casual hiding of her phone under her leg. Little things that didn't mean anything until they meant everything. I thought about how easily she kissed the kids goodnight. How naturally she lived inside this world we built together, all while knowing part of it rested on something she never told me. And the worst part, the part that twisted my gut into something ugly, was knowing she wasn't going to tell me. Not unless she had to. Not unless someone forced her hand. I sat there, the test results open on the laptop in front of me, the cursor blinking in the corner of the screen like a clock ticking down. Outside, I heard the car pull into the driveway. The engine shutting off. Doors slamming. Kids laughing. The front door opened. Elisa's voice floated into the house, cheerful, normal. I closed the laptop gently. Stood up. Smiled when the kids barreled into the kitchen. Hugged them back, hard enough that Ava wrinkled her nose and giggled, "Daddy, you're squishing me." I let go. Ruffled Owen's hair. Elise walked in, setting the keys on the counter, smiling at me like she always did. And I smiled back. Because there were 1,000 things I needed to say. But not yet. Not until I made sure she lost everything she took for granted. I didn't confront her that night. Or the next. I needed time. I needed to think clearly, not burn everything down in a rage and risk making mistakes. She deserved to lose, and she deserved to know exactly why. I started with a lawyer. Explained the DNA results. Explained the hidden deception. Explained that while I wasn't their biological father, I had been their only real father from day one. That I loved them. That I wasn't going anywhere. The lawyer listened carefully, then leaned forward. "You have grounds," he said. "Not just to sever her parental rights. But to completely strip the biological father's rights too, assuming he's uninvolved. You can take everything. House, custody, stability. It wouldn't be easy. But it was possible. Especially once we identified who he was. It didn't take much digging. Elise had been sloppy. Old emails tucked into shared cloud accounts. Meeting invites with strange names that, when traced back, led directly to her boss, the creative director at her firm. Of course. Of course it was someone close. Someone she worked beside. Someone she smiled about when telling me harmless office stories at dinner. While I'd been helping her climb her career ladder, picking up extra loads at home, handling the school runs, covering her late nights, she had been building a second life in the shadows. A life that created 2 children she let me raise as if they were my own, while their real father sat in some corner office sipping lattes and pretending none of it existed. I wasn't about to let him keep pretending. My lawyer sent letters to both of them. Official. Cold. Legal. We demanded immediate acknowledgement from the biological father, notifying him of pending action to terminate his rights permanently, citing abandonment, fraud, and long-term deception. We filed for sole custody of the kids, using the DNA results and years of primary caregiving as our foundation. We requested an emergency court hearing to freeze assets related to Elise until the custody matters were settled, meaning she wouldn't have access to the house funds she thought she could fall back on. By the time the papers were delivered, I had already packed her things. Not roughly. Not angrily. Methodically. Box by box. Clothes, books, makeup, all stacked neatly in the garage. The house, our house, was no longer hers. She came home late that night, after another long meeting, smiling, tired, unworried. Until she saw the boxes. Until she saw me standing by the kitchen counter with the court documents in hand. Her face crumpled before she even opened her mouth. I didn't give her a speech. I didn't need to. I just set the paperwork down and said, "You lied to me. You lied to our kids. And you're not their mother anymore." Her hands shook as she reached for the envelope. She tried to speak. Tried to stammer something about mistakes, about love, about confusion. I didn't listen. I walked past her, out the front door, into the cold night air where I could breathe again. I didn't slam the door behind me. I didn't shout. I didn't need to. She had already destroyed herself. All I had to do was let the wreckage fall exactly where it belonged. Court came fast. Faster than I expected, honestly. The DNA proof left no room for argument. The judge barely needed the full hearing to see what was in front of him. Elise tried. She showed up in a pale suit, holding a folder like it could somehow shield her from what she'd done. Her lawyer tried to paint a picture of confusion, of family love transcending biology. But the facts stood. She had lied about paternity. She had never informed the biological father. She had committed long-term fraud against the person raising those children. And she had no grounds to claim she was fit to maintain full custody after the truth surfaced. The biological father didn't even show up. Didn't contest anything. Didn't file objections. Didn't offer support. It told the court everything they needed to know. The final ruling came down in clean, hard words. I was granted sole custody of Ava and Owen. Elise was stripped of all legal parental rights. The biological father's rights were terminated immediately due to abandonment and disinterest. It was over. The house stayed with me. The primary account stayed with me. The life we had built, the real life, not the one she manufactured behind my back, stayed with me and the kids. Elise was ordered to vacate the property within 14 days. Minimal visitation was offered, at the court's discretion, to be revisited in 2 years pending a full psychological evaluation and demonstrated stability, both financially and emotionally. She sat there frozen when the judge read the final statement. Like she couldn't understand that actions have consequences even when you smile while committing them. When we left the courtroom, Ava was waiting in the car with my sister. Owen was playing a game on a tablet, oblivious. I sat in the driver's seat for a long time before turning the key. It wasn't celebration. It wasn't even relief. It was grief. Not for Elise. Not anymore. For the life I thought we were living, the one built on an illusion so carefully spun that it took DNA itself to shatter it. Back at the house, the energy shifted fast. The kids bounced back quicker than I expected. It helped that the transitions were handled quietly, no fights in front of them, no ugly scenes, no moments they had to unsee. They had family. They had school. They had each other. They had me. Elise tried, a few times, to get through. Emails. Texts. She wrote long, rambling apologies that tried to frame it all as fear. As youthful mistakes snowballing out of control. She said she loved the kids. She said she loved me. I didn't reply. Not once. Love without honesty isn't love at all. And betrayal that deep doesn't heal with apologies. She packed the rest of her things under supervision from a moving company 2 days before the final deadline. She didn't ask to see the kids. She didn't knock on the door. She just left. A half-full SUV, a life packed in cardboard and regret, rolling out of the driveway like a stranger who had once borrowed my wife's face. And I stood at the window, watching her go, feeling nothing but a clean, cold silence settle into my chest. It's been 2 months since Elise left. The house feels different now. Quieter, lighter, almost like it finally belongs to us again. There's no more tension running under the surface, no more glances at the clock wondering when she'll walk in, no more background noise I didn't realize was choking the life out of our home. Just mornings filled with the smell of pancakes and syrup and Ava's half-sung songs while Owen tries to beat his personal record for fastest shoe tying. Just the sound of real laughter, not the kind that feels scripted or heavy. I don't miss her. Not the real her, and definitely not the version she pretended to be. Sometimes I catch a glimpse of an old photo tucked in a drawer we forgot to clear out, or hear a song we used to have playing while making dinner, and it doesn't hit me the way I thought it might. There's no ache, no longing, just a faint recognition of something that used to exist and doesn't anymore. Like looking at a house you moved out of years ago and wondering why you ever thought it was home. The kids have adjusted better than I ever could have hoped. They ask about her less and less. I answer honestly when they do, enough to give them security, never enough to poison their memories. They don't need to carry her mistakes with them. They deserve better. They deserve to know that love doesn't mean lies, that family isn't built on secrets, and that real parents show up even when it's hard. Some days are harder than others. Not because I miss the life I thought I had, but because I'm still sifting through the parts she touched. The furniture we picked out together, the backyard lights she insisted we hang one summer evening, the little painted stones Ava and Owen made with her on a lazy Saturday afternoon. These things still belong to them. They're still part of our story, even if the chapter they started in has ended. I've started going out again. Nothing crazy, coffee shops, bookstores, the occasional dinner with friends who refused to vanish when everything else did. I'm learning how to rebuild, not just the logistics of single parenthood, but the inner spaces too. The places that forgot what it felt like to breathe without second-guessing everything. I'm not in a rush to fill the gaps she left behind. Some spaces deserve to stay open a while. Some lessons deserve the time they take to heal. And maybe one day, someone new will walk into our lives. Someone honest. Someone real. Someone who doesn't flinch from the truth even when it's hard. But for now, it's just us, me, Ava, Owen, and the quiet, steady peace of a house that finally feels like it's breathing again. I didn't just survive what she did. I pulled something better out of it. I'm not who I was when I married Elise. I'm stronger. Clearer. I know what real love looks like now, and it doesn't come with fine print or conditions or shadows in the corners. The life we have now, it's real. No secrets. No lies. Just a man, two amazing kids, and a home built on something solid. And for the first time in a long time, that's more than enough.